All right. Looks like the room is pretty much filled. I'm very surprised that, well, it's one of the last talks for today, and this room is totally overcrowded. I'm super surprised. I was expecting that not more than 6 people will join this. I want to talk about DevOps is a lie, which is more or less my personal experience in DevOps of the last roughly 15 years. But trust me, DevOps is a lie. But we will come to this, and I will explain you why, from my point of view, it's a lie. Just to introduce myself, hi, my name is Marco. I'm. What's wrong with the slide? I deploy on Fridays. I hope everyone does. No? I test in production, and I have a weekend because I'm running huge systems since the last 15 years, and usually I have a weekend. And I usually sleep through the night, so I don't need to be called through the night because the systems I maintain, they are always up and running. Okay. All right, I work for a company called NordCloud. It's a small consultancy company based in Finland. We are, well, part of the IBM family, but IBM is not taking too much care about us because I guess we are just too small about this. So basically, I'm working with all the hyperscalers, AWS, Google Cloud. I'm not an Azure guy. I'm not that experienced in Azure, but AWS and Google Cloud, these are the hyperscalers I use on a very regular basis. So why I'm talking about this, and as you can see, I can make really nice slides, and this is, well, the main reason why I'm talking about this. Doing ops and dev things, and what I see in the past that DevOps was done barely wrong, and so many enterprises struggle with a good DevOps strategy, and most of them fail. And you know what? DevOps is pretty much the same, like the German reunion. Because in the German reunion, it wasn't a reunion. It was, I'm right, yes? Well, it wasn't a reunion. It was just that everything from the West went to the East, and that's it. And if you take this metaphor and compare it with DevOps, it's pretty much the same. So all the good practices from development, they are thrown to the ops guys and say, you have to automate everything, you have to write code, you have to maintain code, and so on. And that's one of the reasons why I think DevOps is a lie. It's not a reunion, it's not a combination. It's learning practices from development. Another reason why I think DevOps is a lie is, well, if you try to think about this term, DevOps. Who is a DevOps person? I hope that no one here is having the title DevOps in his job title. And I hope no one in this room is working in the DevOps team. But DevOps. A DevOps, from my point of view, is a person who is neither good in development nor in operations. He can do nothing. I do have the feeling that I have to update my job title. I'm not a cloud solution architect, I'm a cloud solution comedian. All right. Many things in DevOps are going into a good direction. Well, job title and team, there's another slide. It's not a job title, it's not a team. But all of these other things, all of these words, all of these bubbles, they are all the way around in DevOps. And it is still a good idea, because what you want to achieve is that you have something, what I do, you have a system which is up always, which is always running, which never goes down, and that you don't have to work on the weekend, that you don't get a call overnight and need to fix something because something is broken in production. But just keep in mind, whenever you have the job title DevOps, tomorrow please, well, text your manager that you need a new job title. DevOps is not a job title. And it's not a team. If you're working in the DevOps team, text to your manager, rename the team. Call it, don't know, sugar honey, whatever, but not DevOps. The vision behind DevOps. It's the combination of development and operations in the software delivery lifecycle. I don't know where I have taken this from, but it's not from me. Deliver faster, collaborate better, break silos. But in my words, deploy often. Don't let it go down. Make that it survives the weekend. Especially this last, make that it survives the weekend. this was a very good advice I have received from one of my previous colleagues in one of my previous companies I work with. Many former colleagues are sitting here in this room today. Maybe someone remembers who mentioned this, that make sure it survives the weekend. Do everything you can do on Friday afternoon that it's not going down. But it's a good idea, keep this in mind. I'm not saying that DevOps is not a good idea. I'm just saying that the implementation, how DevOps is being used in many enterprises, and honestly, I'm looking at enterprises, not at small companies here. It's a good idea. Deploy early and deploy often. But when I think about why is this a lie, there is some kind of a dilemma. And if you now see a parallel to an existing person, it could be that someone knows the famous Edwin. Maybe it's not the original name. But let's talk about the Edwin dilemma. Edwin, who is Edwin? Edwin is an IT leader. He is a champion. He is 50-something years old. He is leading the IT operations department in a traditional enterprise, which is older than 50 years. And Edwin's world is about manual deployments, ITIL-based change management. He's doing nightly backups. He's having a bunch of shell scripts, which can do many, many things on servers, even in parallel. And Edwin's biggest assets are that he's taking over responsibility, he's always reachable, and the system he has to maintain shows up as stable, as long as the developers don't throw a new deployment container over the fence. But then, roughly 15 years ago, Edwin's boss, he said the bad words, "We are doing DevOps now." So Edwin started to struggle. And you see, he became sad. Before, he had stability, processes, tickets. So it was plannable for him what to do. He knew when a developer wanted to do the deployment, because deployments are just once a month. And he could plan this. He could put his vacation in a week where no deployments are planned. How amazing is this? But now the developers are standing next to his desk every day. "Hey, I want to deploy to production. Can I do it now immediately? Erwin, come on." And well, Edwin, oh, sorry that I should, oh my God, Edwin had some fears that because the developers, they are asking that often to deploy to production, that they are taking away his job. And then it came to his mind that he's thinking about, hey, what skills do I need? Why I'm here? Is development taking away my job? But I'm not a coder. I can write shell scripts. I can run multiple SSH commands on hundreds of servers in parallel with my setup on my Windows computer. But why is everyone laughing so much? It's coming from somewhere over there. But Edwin, he is not a coder. He's good in operations, because keep in mind, he had assets. He had stability, reachability, and he's taking over responsibility. So Edwin is a good guy. But with this new way of DevOps, he's somehow overwhelmed. He wants the old way back and says, oh, what the fuck. But Edwin is a smart guy. He is going to some consultancy companies. Like, I'm working for a consultancy company. Trust me, I'm a consultant. And Edwin is thinking about and discussing with these companies, what can I do in order to ensure that this DevOps thing is going somehow forward so that my manager is convinced, but I need to stay there. And they gave him some advices what to do. So, for instance, they said, give the developers access to the production system. The consultant companies also told him that, hey, Edwin, why don't you join the team as the DevOps? So I'm pretty sure you see this everywhere in the industry, that even many consultancy companies are talking about DevOps as a role and putting DevOps into the contracts. Don't do this. They also advise Edwin to increase the production deployment speed so that it's deployed earlier and more often, but they also tell him, well, you can still lead the operations team, but you can call it DevOps. And then Edwin still thinks that he needs to be responsible for 24/7, so runbooks are important because he's not a coder. He doesn't know if a system is crashing, how to bring it back, and why it was crashing. He just wants to know what are the steps to do in order to ensure that it survives the weekend. One famous quote here is that DevOps made everyone responsible, and therefore no one is responsible. And Edwin is trying to jump into this gap and taking over the responsibility. So he started to implement a few things. And the first thing he started is the DevOps team. So the DevOps team is a team which is in between deployment and in between operations and development. So operations, they still handle the data center. Keep in mind, this is before cloud. So you still have to handle cables, racks, power supply, air conditioning, and so on. These kind of things are also in scope for Edwin. And the DevOps team is now doing the deployment, but no longer handling the physical data center. He no longer needs this. The ops team, which is still there, they are installing the base operating system and the dependencies which need to be there. Maybe they even configure a firewall or something like this, but they don't do the deployments. This is now done by the DevOps team. And this, well, the clueless devs, which have no idea about operations, they are getting the help they need from this DevOps team. But in the end, and this of course is, well, it's just copied from DevOpsTopologies.com. I hope someone knows this already. DevOps Topologies is a web page from the same guys who wrote this book, Team Topologies, Matthew Skelton and Manuel Pace. And they are explaining some DevOps anti-patterns on this page, DevOpsTopologies.com. And the first anti-pattern which was implemented by Edwin is the DevOps silo, because having a DevOps team in between development and operations is just adding an additional layer of complexity. It's not putting responsibility into development. No, it's not, because the DevOps team is doing all the deployments. And in the end, it looks like it's just an additional layer. It slows down the delivery, and Edwin came to this point that, it doesn't make sense. If you take a look at this web page, this model is named as the anti-pattern B, and it's described in a way that it could make sense to start with such a model on short term, in a transition between 12 and 18 months, but not longer. So Edwin went back to this consultancy company and asked more questions about, well, what can I do now? And then he said, well, then DevOps didn't work in that way. You need to bring it more shift left to the development team. Let the developers doing ops. So he gave the root access to the developers, and the developers, they stopped complaining. So great, Edwin feels good. Well, mission accomplished. DevOps done. And well, there's still this 24/7 thing, and most of the developers, they always complain about 24/7 because they say, hey, I'm on the cinema at the weekend. I can't take the phone if the system is going down, and I'm not responsible if the system is going down at the weekend. It's Edwin's responsibility based on his employment contract. But Edwin himself, he can concentrate on the overall infrastructure. So he ran this model for quite some time, and then it failed once more, and he figured out, oh, this is also an anti-pattern, because the developers on the long term, this DevOps bubble I need to stay here, otherwise I'm out of this camera. This red DevOps bubble is just very small in here, but the truth is, it's a lot. You have to do a lot in order to understand what needs to be done to ensure that a system is running 24/7. It's not just writing a code or building a container. You have to ensure that it's scaling up and down. Also down, especially in our days when most of the companies are trying to save some money, ensure that it can scale down as well. If there is no traffic, you can even scale down to 0. And the developers figure out that, oh, that's a lot to do. We can't do everything on our own. We need more support. And therefore, well, Edwin thought about, let's start another model. Instead of DevOps, I'm doing now Ops Dev. And he's setting up the platform so that there's a service which can be used by all the development teams, that they can just throw their container instead of over the fence. They throw their container into, don't know, Kubernetes, whatever. And Edwin is then, with his team, responsible for the for this operations platform provided. And then he can also concentrate on the base ops things like logging, alarming, security, whatever. We can make this list even longer, but I don't want to make this longer now. But, well, this ended up in KOps. It's the anti-pattern E. It's, well, the anti-pattern E. Ops does dev without talking to dev. And, well, the ops guys with the included DevOps bubble, which is already bigger than, do you remember these slides? This slide here, it's smaller, but here it's bigger because the ops guys know that there's a lot to do. But it just meant that it's far away from what the teams do. It's far away from what is actually required by the delivery teams, because Edwin thought, bare metal is a good idea. I install Linux and then I let run some automation like Ansible, or what is the new shit now? Is it still Ansible? I guess Puppet and Chef, these kind of tools are very outdated. But Edwin thought it's a good idea to have a running bare metal machine, but the developers, they needed containers, for instance, or even serverless. So it doesn't help. And Edwin started another idea, which is, well, how can we improve the developer experience? And he started a team for tool ops. So the developers don't need to make the setup completely on their own. They are getting some tools from the tool ops team, and potentially these tool ops teams, I know some examples where we had these sub tool ops teams in a bunch of other teams, and they concentrated on having developer experience, ensure that maybe even from day one it is possible for a new joiner to commit to the system so that it's then automatically going to production. But once more, he understood that this is not working. This is noob ops. Once more, it's an anti-pattern D, the DevOps tools team from DevOps topologies, and there's no real change in the situation for the production system, because a tool ops team is not ensuring that everything is working on 24/7. It's just creating tools. It's still a good idea to have some, well, support for developers to increase speed, especially when you are in an enterprise environment where you see that onboarding is taking a month. And if you have a team which is handling developer experience, this is still a good idea. But, well, now Edwin he has no more ideas what to do, and so he's taking another look at the industry, and then he got overwhelmed by this. So DevOps there are so many tools out, and it's just exploding, and it's impossible for Edwin to find the right strategy. So ideally, there should be someone who can support him, and tools are just tools. It's not the cultural shift which is requested by Edwin's manager. It's still not the way that it's solving the problem that they want to do DevOps. And if you think about tools, it's even getting worse. This is pretty much the same, but it's just in a different way. I guess some people know them. Someone here working for ThoughtWorks? Sorry. Lucky me. The tech radar from ThoughtWorks, published twice a year. Don't look at this. It's waste of time, because in the end, it's just something like this. It's a list of tools and with a recommendation whether to adapt, trial, assess, or hold. What the fuck? So whenever I go into this tech radar thingy, I just feel overwhelmed by, I should do something new. I don't do it now. Well, I started something new 6 months ago. Let's throw this away and do something else. Is this a recommendation here for following the tech radar? So from my point of view, also this tech radar, it didn't help. Throw it away. Don't take a look into this. And so Edwin ended up in the jungle. Keep this in mind, one step to the side, because Edwin is now in the jungle. He's working for an enterprise. Enterprise usually have a procurement department. What is the biggest benefit of having procurement? Running RFPs, right? So when you run an RFP, then you are talking about commercial off-the-shelf platform. So when you think about commercial off-the-shelf platforms, then the basic idea is, hey, I want to save some money because I have a bunch of requirements which needs to be implemented with a tool. And procurement is saying that they can support me with a good RFP, that we find the right tool and then we save a lot of money. So I collect my requirements. When I take a look at the features from all these commercial off-the-shelf tools, then you see, oh my God, they are much bigger than my requirements. But there's a huge overlap, maybe 80%, maybe 70%, but let's say it's 80%, so we can go Pareto and say with 80-20, good idea to start. It covers a lot. Then it comes to implementation. And oh my God, we missed this tiny detail. 40% of the features which are in the commercial off-the-shelf tool are not working. So it ends up in this huge value. The message here is don't buy any tools for DevOps. Don't do it. You can burn your money directly. I guess this icon is a firewall, but you can burn the money directly. All right, and DevOps is getting worse because it started with this, DevOps, the joint responsibility for development and operations within a single team. And then it came to DevSecOps. Let's put security in. It's development, operations, and security within a single team. Want to make a guess what's coming now? Let's put financial in. DevSec, FinOps. Let's put business in. Now we are doing DevSec, FinBizOps. And I don't know if someone remembers how this is called. Once more, I hope no one from ThoughtWorks is in here, because ThoughtWorks is talking a lot about shift left. Shift left just means put more responsibility into the development team. And this is exactly what I see in the industry, that, hey, we are putting more responsibility, more roles in the development team with shift left. And you know, it's even getting worse, and you're putting in QA, and then you're putting in whatever. You're starting with ChatOps and GitOps, and just combine all these words, and then you say, well, now we are doing it right because we combine everything. No, you don't do it right when you combine everything. I hope some people are familiar with this T-shirt shape model of skills, techniques, and how a good team setup is. If you think about this, what you have seen, that we shift the responsibilities left to the development team, then in an ideal world, we would have a T-shape for team members in a team where it's possible to have the techniques, skills, experience on, well, this axis above, and then you go down the knowledge and experience. And in a good team, you usually have someone who is, for instance, in the programming language, which is used more than one, who can go down very far in the knowledge of the experience, so that in the end you have a mixture. Some people go down in front end, some people go down in back end, some people go down in operations, in QA, security, whatever you name it. So it ends up with this model that the t-shirt looks like this. And it looks like this, and in the teams itself, you have a team of silos. And especially in one company I know very good from my previous experience, I have seen this a lot, that, hey, a good idea is to have a team of 5 plus minus 2. We need more developers, let's go to 7 developers. Then we need security, business, operations. I had a conversation with someone sitting here today who told me, well, there's a team with, don't know, 10 developers, 5 people from business. I'm pretty sure that this is not a good ratio. And then you also need some people in ops, because we are doing DevOps, and you have UX and QA and financials and whatever. In the end, you can draw a complete org chart out of this. And this complete org chart would result in having a company in the company. Isn't it like this? Who remembers this nice Amazon term of having, well, a good team size is when a team can eat 2 pizzas, American pizzas, right? They should rename it to the 2 monster pizza team, because this is exactly what I see in the industry. There's just a 2 monster pizza team to ensure that this huge group of people, where everyone is still concentrating on his own domain, so it's still not DevSec, Fin, QA, whatever ops. It's everyone is concentrating on his own domain, because in reality, it still means the code is written by the devs. Ops is not writing the code. UX is not writing code. Business is not writing code. Security is just making the rules. They even say, we are not checking the rules. We just tell you what the rules are, and you have to check on your own. Please write an alarm for this. Sometimes developers are doing designs. Don't do this, but it's done by UX. And if you have UX in your team, DevSec, UX, QA, whatever ops, then it's still the same, that design is done by usually a single person or 2. So all around this is not DevOps. And Edwin is still super unhappy. So he still feels completely overwhelmed looking at the industry and doesn't know what to do. And then someone gave him a book. A book I already mentioned. The book is called Team Topologies. And this book, Team Topologies, is having 2 very important parts. And both of these parts are mentioned here. This book, Team Topologies, is explaining 3 interaction models and 4 team types. I made one slightly change to the book, because in the book it's always said that the teams are stream-aligned teams. I like more the term product team. So a product team is a team who is on the value chain, ensuring that something is being built so that the company can make the money. You can have a complicated subsystem team. A good example for this would be a team who is maintaining a subsystem like the search engine, the solar cluster. It's complex. You can have enablement teams which go into other teams to teach others. The biggest difference between complicated subsystem and enablement is that an enablement team is never taking over any responsibility. They are just consultants. The complicated subsystem team, they care if the solar cluster is still running. And then you have on the bottom what I love, the platform teams. Teams which create a platform to make the life easier for the stream-aligned teams, mainly the stream-aligned teams. You should have in your model more stream-aligned product teams than enablement, complicated, and platform teams in total. And then it comes to the interaction models. There's no pointer on this clicker here, but we have 3 interaction models available. The first interaction model would be facilitation. And facilitation is, as I already mentioned, means it's not taking over responsibility for delivery, like an enablement team is supporting a product team in order to learn how to write Terraform, how to deploy to the cloud, whatever. Then we have this, model collaboration for the complicated subsystem team. Because there is a clear collaboration between the product team, the stream-aligned team, and the team which is handling this complicated subsystem. And now it's getting to the interaction model, which I like most, because this is scaling a lot. It's called X as a service. So a platform team should always work in a way that they offer a service which can be consumed by, don't know, an API or by an event or whatever, so that a product team can consume what is provided by this platform team. This interaction model can also be used for complicated subsystem teams when you want to decouple it a little bit. But basically, from my point of view, this interaction model, X as a service, is there for platform teams. If I now go deeper into platforms, then I would say they are, this is just my approach. This is not taken from the book. This is what I think about it. There are different platform types. I would say there are internal development platforms. Keep in mind, Spotify's Backstage, well known in the industry, is from my point of view not a development platform. They even don't call it development platform. They call it developer platform, which is slightly different. And then there are self-service portals for do-it-yourself, base services, access management. There are support platforms like GitHub Actions for CI/CD, Jira, Confluence, you name it. I guess everyone is using it on a daily basis. And there are a bunch of operations management platforms for doing monitoring, for CMDB, security, IT service management, whatever. If I go now into a deep dive, then, and still opinionated approach, it's from me, it's not taken from the book. So if you quote it, always name me. The internal development platform is the base runtime. It can be on top of open source. It can't be on top of commercial software. It's just not working. So it can be on top of open source. It supports with interfaces, and it makes this tiny default, which, sometimes it's not tiny, the standard, the default, but it should make it a standard so that it's possible to deploy into this platform. It's scaling horizontally and vertically, and very often it's layered. I will come to this layered model a bit later. But it's building a strong cohesion between platforms and product teams. So it limits the freedom, and often you have a domino effect risk. So if the base platform goes down, then everything is not working. And in terms of autonomy, you always want to try to avoid this. Examples, I don't want to name them. Then there are self-service platforms, which are on a lower base platforms, for instance, getting access to a hyperscaler, getting a subscription in Azure, an account in AWS, for the creation of a VPC, which is connected to the on-prem or other locations, having private DNS. So all the things which are really very, very opsy, but you just need it, because without DNS, without private connectivity, many things are not working. The integration here into enterprise tools, like these operations management tools, which will come on the next slide, but I mentioned it previously, this is often quite high. And sometimes it's also integrated into the internal development platform. It always has to offer APIs and avoid direct human-to-human communication. If you have direct human-to-human communication, you just limit your scalability. Don't do this. From my point of view, Backstage is this kind of platform. Okay, then it comes to the development support platforms. So just tools which ensure that the developer experience is okay, that the project management works, like GitHub Actions, Jenkins. Sometimes here you have these noisy neighbor problems, especially in GitHub Actions. I have seen it today on Slack in my current project that there are no more runners. We forgot to update a certificate on the runners. Now they are scaled down to 0 and they don't come up. We have to wait for 2 hours until everything is back. You have these noisy neighbors, but if they go down, it hurts. It hurts the development process, but it's the entire system is not down. So that's somehow okay as long as you don't have to manage runners. Honestly, I would not suggest any product team to deploy GitHub runners on their own. And then we have these operations management platforms, which ensure that the base operation things, logging, alarming, PagerDuty, that all of these things work. Security with IO, for instance, or having a good discovery with tools like SteamPipe. And as you see, I'm an inventor. I invented the magic quadrants for platforms based on synergies and the implementation effort. And I would say the operations management platforms, they are quite often SaaS services. So the implementation effort is quite low, but the synergies are high. Start with it. It's not a bad idea to do so. If you think about the development support platforms, there is usually a bit more effort, especially in customization. This means a bit more implementation effort, and the synergies are going down as well, but it's still a good idea. Keep in mind, don't streamline the pipelines from each product team so that everything has to look equally the same. This doesn't make sense. Then you have the internal development platforms based on cloud or containers usually, but often a very different usage per teams, which also means the implementation and maintenance effort is quite high for these kind of tools. And then when it comes to the self-service platforms, the implementation effort is going up even more. Well, it's going right even more because here you need to provide APIs. You need to ensure that you can maintain it. It's often built in a way that it's just working for this company because it's implementing the self-service for the company. I need to speed up a little bit if we still want to have some questions. I already mentioned this layered model. This is just an example how a layered model would look like for platforms. You can have the core infrastructure and access management billing on the very bottom, and then maybe there's a container runtime which is used for deploying the part of the product directly in the container runtime. This also means that then a team which is doing the deployment has just to deploy to the container runtime, and they don't have to care about the bottom line. They don't have to care about this bottom platform. On the other hand, and especially I see this in enterprises, teams are different, and each team is following a different approach, and you should not force a team to always do the same. There are enough use cases where it makes sense that a product team is getting access to the core infrastructure platform so that they start with an empty AWS account. It makes sense. My key benefits for X as a service, this interaction model, it's reducing the knowledge needed in the teams because you just have to ensure that the API has a good specification and it can be consumed automatically. It's reducing this book team topologies, and many people are arguing about this, if this is a good idea, but this book team topology is always talking about the cognitive load, the complexity that fits in everyone's head. And if you use a platform, then you can reduce the complexity which is on top of the team. You just remove the burden of knowing everything for a team. Using such a platform with X as a service as interaction model also allows you good cross-team exchange. So if a developer wants to switch the team, or due to business requirements, you need to ensure that someone else can join another team because you want to scale up something, then if you find almost common ground, then it's much easier to do this cross-team support. You can handle operational risk much easier, and this is also something which I like very much. You can handle decisions, because if you remember this lovely tech radar from ThoughtWorks, it ends up in, I can't change anything now because I first need to take a look into the tech radar and make the best decision. Take this away from the complete company. Have one team, maybe two, who are building a platform. And if a new thing pops up, then only a single team has to evaluate if it makes sense to introduce a new tool, a new platform, a new framework, whatever. Decision making is blocking teams. And if you can ensure that you have someone, especially in this tools landscape, who can work on decision making, it's from my point of view a plus. The last point on this slide I want to talk about is happiness and talents. You can ensure with a good platform, if it's a good platform. I have seen many bad platforms. I've implemented bad platforms in my personal career. But if you have a good platform, it can ensure that people stay in your company, that they are happy, because it feels good to deploy to production using this platform. It really makes sense to do so. So in the end, if Edwin, you remember Edwin, implements this model, he's becoming the Ed winner. And with this, here's not also only just a short summary, but I guess we don't have to talk about the summary. I hope I made my points. I hope my message is clear, but I'm open for questions now.